Anyway, yeah, so we're going to talk about tier list today. Nothing too crazy here. It's going to go through, and I've played a fair bit of Series 7, but I haven't played with any serious teams, so I don't know how, like, exactly how much. Like, I wouldn't take this as, like, my, you know, objective best tier list or anything, but I saw the general sense of how good the Pokemon are, so rather than going in, like, the order that this is here, I think we should probably go mons that I think are good to mons that I think are very bad, or we can go bad and start up, but it's probably easier to go good and start bad. First of all, we have Kyogre. I don't think that this is too complicated. Like, it should be pretty obvious that Kyogre is always going to be one of the best Pokemon in the formats that it plays in. It has an incredibly strong water spout, which is very, very, very powerful, and not all restricted Pokemon want to max. Like, some Pokemon really want to max, and some Pokemon, like, can't max, like Zashin, and some Pokemon can go either way. Kyogre's in a really nice area where it can max, and if it maxes, it's like strong, but it doesn't need to max because Water Spout is such a powerful option. Right now, Kyogre teams are very one-dimensional. People are running Water Spout, Ice Beam, and either Origin Pulse or Thunder, or actually I think they're running Scald right now. I think it's like Protect, Spout, Scald, Ice Beam is like the moveset right now, with Mystic Water, and they're using it with Tornadus, and no one's really been innovating too much when it comes to Kyogre, which is fine. Like, I mean, the way that people are playing Kyogre is working, obviously. It's like a very easy, very one-dimensional, very linear type of play, and it's strong. Like, that's the real thing, is that it's a very strong Pokemon. But yeah, in terms of just raw stats, raw ability, raw like move pool, Kyogre is going to be one of the best Pokemon always. Zashin, I'm going to put in an S tier. I use Zashin and it felt pretty bad, but I use it with Hop Steam, which probably is why it felt pretty bad. This thing feels like it's too strong to not have it in the S tier, so I'm going to put it in the S tier, even though when I used it, it didn't feel as strong as it looks. But again, that may have been a Hop Steam thing. So yeah, this is being used a lot with Lapras right now. Lapras plus Zashin is a very strong combination, and basically the thing about Zashin is that it has so many things going for it. It has one of, if not the best typing in the game, Steel, Fairy. Those are, if you remember from my tier list where I ranked all the typings, Steel and Fairy were two of the S tier types, maybe the only two S tier types. But yeah, Steel and Fairy are probably the two best types in the game, defensively and offensively, and it has both of them. It also has a very powerful stab move in Behemoth Blade that never misses. Having a no-miss stab, like, strong move is very, very strong. 100 base power is incredible, and it's really good into Dynamax Pokemon, so it allows you some interesting counterplay. Now, the reason why I'm not crazy about Zashin is that its bulk is not like, it's got good bulk, but most of the time you're running max speed, max attack, and you can't Dynamax it, like, at all. Like, that's the rule with it. So even though it has really good defensive typing, really good offensive typing, good move pool with Fairy, Fighting, Electric coverage moves, and Steel, obviously, you can't max it, which makes using it sometimes a little bit awkward. But it's a very, very strong Pokemon. Some people have even been running Swords Dance and Sacred Sword instead of just, like, close combat, because let's try and, like, play around the Intimidate counterplay that people use versus this thing. But yeah, did I mention it's also incredibly fast? Like, they kind of just gave it everything. Great typing, maybe the best typing you can have, good offensive stat, a broken ability, which we haven't even talked about, but it gets an attack boost every time it switches in. So it basically always starts off with +1 attack, which is a big deal, and no drawback stab move that never misses, and does double damage versus Dynamax Pokemon. Great coverage moves, really good, like, pretty much everything you could want in a Pokemon it has, except it can't Dynamax. It's going to be one of the best Pokemon when people use it, and I'm interested to see if when we eventually go to 2 restricted Pokemon, how it fares there, like, because I think when it has restricted Pokemon partners, it can get even stronger. And in the A tier, I think Groudon is an A tier mon. In restricted formats, special attackers are typically the way to go, because Intimidate is always, it's like on every team. I think in 2019, I think Incineroar was on 85% of teams or something crazy, like Incineroar, not just Intimidate, but Incineroar itself, which granted was the main Intimidator, but it wasn't the only Intimidator legal. But yeah, Groudon's really interesting. It has really good bulk. It has the pure ground typing. Interesting thing about Groudon and Kyogre is that Groudon got a pretty big nerf when it comes to losing its primal form, because primal Groudon is part fire type, whereas Kyogre is just pure water type. Although, like, they both lose the extra base stats they gained from the orbs from their primal reversion, the difference is that Groudon loses the fire typing, which is kind of a big deal for it. However, still very strong. I would argue that Groudon benefits more from Dynamax than Kyogre does, because Groudon, first of all, like, it has mediocre special bulk, so doubling its HP is pretty good, and it's easier to shore up your physical defense than your special defense, which is why, whereas, you know, Kyogre has lower physical defense. And Groudon, when it Dynamaxes, has access to max Quake, which one of Groudon's biggest issues is, although Kyogre has Water Spout and Scald, Groudon uses Precipice Blades as its main attacking move, and Precipice Blades is only 85% accurate on each mon. So not only does Groudon gain a special defense boost by switching to a Dynamax attack, rather than Precipice Blades, it also gains the ability to never miss, which is very big for a Pokemon like Groudon, which is just kind of textbook inconsistent in my opinion. It's a Pokemon that is going to miss Precipice Blades and you can't control that, and this gives you a tool to keep that in control. Additionally, Venusaur is quite strong right now. Gigantamax Venusaur is really good. Sun has been a powerful archetype pretty much all year, ever since Venusaur was introduced, and actually even before then, just because Torkoal was so strong. So having a Pokemon that, you know, is able to set up the Sun and is not Torkoal and can function out of Trick Room and is not a fire type, so you still are able to like run fire types without repeat synergies is pretty good. And Groudon plus Venusaur is really good into rain. Well, Venusaur and Sun is really good into most rain teams. Yeah, Venusaur also runs Weather Ball now, which like you could use to deal with like Cortana. Because if you think about the average rain team, it's the core is Tornadus, Kyogre, Regieleki, Cortana, Incineroar +1, right? Like that's like more or less the team. And Venusaur hits all those Pokemon for super effective with Grass, Ground, Fire, except for Tornadus, which probably doesn't like taking Max Flare and Sun anyway. Yeah, it's a pretty good Pokemon overall, and I think Groudon just gains like Groudon's always a good Pokemon, but it gains a lot of consistency with Dynamax. It has some nice support moves as well. Like you can use Swords Dance, you can use Thunder Punch, you can use I guess Rock Tomb or Rock Slide, though I don't recommend those. But yeah, I think overall it's a good Pokemon. It's got good stats as well. I think Dialga's probably an A-tier mon as well. This is a Pokemon that has always been mediocre. I brought it to 2 tournaments. I won regionals, and then I bombed nationals with it in 2016. But it's always felt a little lackluster. But with the addition of Dynamax and Weakness Policy, it's able to take its very, very good defensive typing, and it's kind of like good but not exceptional offense, and shore up both of those things. And it also becomes incredibly difficult to remove because of Dynamax doubling its HP, and then Steel moves raising its defense, and then Max Quake off of Earth Power raising its special defense. This thing is very, very, very good. It hits really hard, especially at +2. It also doesn't have to worry about Draco Meteor if it's Dynamaxed. I don't love Dialga overall. I think that it's probably going to fall off in usage because, number one, there's a bit of counterplay. Like, as with any Weakness Policy mon, if you deny the Weakness Policy and have ways to lower the special attack, it's more manageable. Also, I think the thing about Dialga is that it kind of needs to Dynamax. You could argue it might not, and maybe there are some forms of Dialga that don't need to Dynamax, but in my opinion, Dialga really needs to be the Dynamax Pokemon, and Pokemon that are really inflexible like that, I don't tend to love, and I tend to find that they are like abusable in their counterplays. It's a good Pokemon, like it's good, it hits really hard, it's a Pokemon you need to prepare for, you need to respect, but I think over time, if we were to play this format for a while, I would expect people to start having more smart counterplay. Next up is Yveltal. I think this is one of Yveltal's best formats, especially because, spoiler alert, Xerneas is somehow not amazing, which is kind of crazy and something I never ever thought I would say, but yeah, Yveltal's actually pretty good right now. It hits very, very hard, and it also has really nice max moves. So Yveltal's a Pokemon, unlike Dialga, more like Groudon, where it can max, but it doesn't have to, and it has a whole lot of things in its arsenal that are useful. So you can do Assault Vest Bulky Yveltal with Foul Play, Sucker Punch, Snarl, Oblivion Wing, all that good stuff. You can do Life Orb Yveltal. I think that's probably the strongest variant right now with Oblivion Wing, Dark Move. The thing about Yveltal is you can run 4 different Dark moves. Like, I ran Assault Vest Yveltal, and I may have even run, I think I ran 4 Dark moves. Sucker Punch, because Sucker Punch is a priority move, so you want to use that. You want to use Foul Play because it uses the target's attack stat, which is useful for like Swords and stuff, or just like because normally your Yveltal's a special attacker. The Snarl is like a really good support move, and then Dark Pulse is like a strong stab move that actually does damage, right? So you can literally run quad Dark move Yveltal and have it be good. So the thing about Yveltal that I like is that it benefits a lot from Dynamax. You have Max Airstream, which is one of the best, if not the best Dynamax attack. Very, very, very powerful. And Yveltal, who previously wouldn't really run a flying move, now can justify running a flying move because of Max Airstream. And Max Darkness, coming off of a special attack, combos into itself. So not only are you getting a power boost from Dynamax, where, you know, your Yveltal's Dark Pulse is powering up by like over 1.3 times, you also have Dark Aura boosting that, and you also have Life Orb boosting that, and on top of that, you also can lower their special defense to make your next Dark move do even more damage. So it's a very, 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 very powerful offensive Pokemon, and I think it could do quite well given the right team. Now, if you look at the Pokemon around here, you might notice that Zashin does pretty well into it. Kyogre, I wouldn't say does amazing, but it definitely is strong, given that Kyogre typically runs a lot of speed control on its team, so you have to be careful there, but I think that Yveltal is pretty strong, and it also has like the added benefit of powering up the rest of the team's dark moves, so you can run random foul plays, or you can run, you know, pair it with Incineroar, which I did to top 4 EU Internats back in the day, so yeah, I think Yveltal is actually quite good, and it's always been a Pokemon that like has kind of been more of a niche pick, because Xerneas has always been popular, but with Xerneas on the low, I don't know, I think Yveltal could be quite strong, especially if you counter Zashin, which is a little easier, because Zashin can't max. Solgaleo is another A-tier mon. We're gonna have a lot in the A-tier, I think. Solgaleo is similar to Dialga. It trades a little bit of bulk and a little bit worse defensive typing for more speed, which is nice. It also is, it's a physical attacker, whereas Dialga is a special attacker. So Solgaleo, very similar to Dialga in that you want to activate Weakness Policy, you want to Dynamax it, you want to just do big damage. However, the thing about Solgaleo is that with Dialga, normally you're either going to want to be in screens and make it like super bulky, so it doesn't matter if you attack second, or you want to be in Trick Room, whether Dialga sits the Trick Room itself, or you pair it with like like Bulldoze Dusclops or something like that. So it requires a little bit more setup. However, with Solgaleo, it's a little bit different because most people are abusing right now Solgaleo's Full Metal Body, which is an ability that says, it's Clear Body. It's the same thing as Clear Body, like Metagross has, just different name. And the thing about Full Metal Body is that you can pair it with Bulldoze. I've seen this paired with Sash Spectrier, I've seen this paired with Brutal Swing Pokemon with Tailwind, but the thing about like Bulldoze plus Clear Body weakness policy is that you lower your opponent's speeds while not lowering your own, which is quite good. So basically with this, you're gonna max it, you're gonna not worry about the Trick Room setup, and instead most of the time you're gonna go for either Bulldoze or Tailwind, but most of the time it's gonna be Bulldoze, and just try to sweep through opponents like without having to worry about that turn of setup with the screens or the Trick Room or whatever. Yeah, it's a good Pokemon. I tried it myself. I struggled a bit with it, but I didn't give it too much time. But overall, I do think it's an interesting Pokemon. I think that it could be used in a lot more ways than it's currently being used. The interesting thing about Dynamax is that like Dynamax feels like it takes a lot of these Pokemon that were just like a couple, like they were like slightly worse than the Pokemon better than them, but because like restricted Pokemon, or in formats with restricted Pokemon, the Pokemon you choose matter so much. That little bit of power difference felt like worlds of difference, right? Like Kyogre wasn't that much better than Solgaleo, like if you just like looked at them on paper, but it was enough better that like you would almost never want to, like the difference between a team using Solgaleo as a restricted or Kyogre as a restricted back in the day was like huge. And now with Dynamax, it feels like a lot of these Pokemon that are really kind of the best of the best, like Kyogre, they don't benefit as much from it because a lot of them are using strong, powerful spread moves, whereas some of the other Pokemon like Solgaleo, which were kind of mediocre, benefit a lot from Dynamax. If you look at everything in the A tier, like not that these Pokemon were mediocre, but they weren't as good as something like Kyogre or Xerneas, they benefit so much more from the extra bulk and the extra power than something like Kyogre, who was already hitting really hard. So that's just kind of like an interesting observation. Solgaleo is basically a better Metagross, exactly. So if you understand how Metagross plays, then you pretty much should understand how Solgaleo plays, but it's better. Do you think Foul Play has a place in Yveltal? I think that it depends on the item. I think that on an Assault Vest set, you definitely have room for Foul Play. I think on Life Orb, you might want to use Sucker Punch, Flying Move, Dark Move, Protect. Like Sucker Punch, Oblivion Wing, Dark Pulse, Protect specifically. But on Assault Vest, I think you could definitely justify it, especially if you didn't plan on maxing it too much. You could run Snarl, like I mentioned, Snarl, Foul Play, Sucker Punch, Dark Pulse is good, or Oblivion Wing on there. Solgaleo can also set his own Trick Room, that's right. It's just that most of the people right now are abusing Full Metal Body on it, but you definitely could use Trick Room Solgaleo as well, that's totally fair. Yeah, you would never really want to Assault Vest Dialga because, I mean, you could use it, but like with Dialga, you're not worried about your bulk, you're worried about your damage output, right? And so Assault Vest is gonna increase your bulk and not your damage output, and you don't really need that. Wide Guard, Trick Room Solgaleo. Yeah, that can be good, especially with, I mean, like, and again, I'm just kind of talking about the standard stuff here. You can always mix it up, right? Like you can always find, like when there's a standard thing, using niche things is gonna give you an advantage. So I'm adding a new tier here, which is B+, and I'm putting both horses here. And these might belong in A. You could maybe like, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Ice Horse ends up in A or S specifically, because this seems like a Pokemon that's like just broken. I haven't seen enough of them. I haven't used them. When I've played against them, they haven't felt that strong. So I'm putting them in B+ for now because I think they have a ton of potential. I think that like they should be, everything about them should be really strong. They just haven't really found their place yet. So I'm putting them in B+ for now. So I'll talk about Ice Horse first. Actually, I mean, I think I can talk about both horses as one because they do very similar things. It's just one is out of Trick Room and one is in Trick Room. Both are incredibly powerful, very, 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 very strong base stat Pokemon. Let's take a look at their base stats because we can do that pretty easily. Okay, so Calyrex Ghost has 150 speed, very fast, 100 special defense, 165 special attack, insane. Not great defense and good HP. Basically incredible stats across the board. And if we look at Calyrex Ice Rider, 100 HP, 165 attack, 150 defense, 85 special attack, and 130 special defense with 50 speed. These are incredible. These are some of the best stats on any Pokemon ever, right? Like they're incredible stats, especially Ice Horse. Even though like they're not performing that well right now, I think they're still very strong. And on top of that, okay, you might say, all right, well they've got great stats. Who cares, right? Typing isn't terrible. The typing's not great, but offensively it's not bad at all. And the real thing here is that they have stupid attacks. They have 130 base power, 100% accuracy, ice type, spread move that never misses. And then 120 ghost type, 100 accuracy, never misses. So these things should just be unbeatable in my opinion. So I don't really understand why they're not doing better. Partially it's, I think Zashin, there's counterplay, but yeah, like the thing is that they do need a little bit of support. Like Regieleki's existence really hurts Shadow Calyrex. So Ice Calyrex needs like a full team around it in order to be good. But I mean, this thing paired with Incineroar should be good, but also it's kind of susceptible to Intimidate. They also have a great ability, which not only gives them Moxie and Beast Boost special attack for me when they knock out Pokemon, but they also can't use berries against them. So no Shuka Berry, no Yachi Berry, none of that stuff. And they have pretty good move. Okay, Ghost Calyrex doesn't have amazing move pool, but it doesn't need that much other than Ghost, Psychic. Oh, it also gets Expanding Force, by the way. Astral Barrage, Expanding Force, and then it gets Mud Shot as well, I believe. It actually has a fair bit of support moves as well. Yeah, and then Ice Horse gets Ground, Fighting, you know, Ice, everything you'd want. Steel. Like, you have 4 move slot syndrome on it. Wait, they get Pollen Puff? Why? I think a Pollen Puff. I guess because the head is so big. Could be really good, could be mediocre. We're just gonna have to wait and see with these two, but they should be good. B tier. So these are Pokemon that are solid, like not bad, like they can do well, but they're not gonna be as consistent nor as strong as the Pokemon above them. These are gonna be Pokemon like Ho-Oh, right? Very good defensive piece, very good defensive Pokemon. Very, very, very bulky. Has access to 2 forms of recovery, either with Recover itself or Regenerator, which is a very, very good ability, which allows you to switch out, regain health, a whole third of your health, which is a lot. Not great defensive typing, but the defensive typing is fine for most things, and then like the natural bulk is so good that you can kind of afford to have like not phenomenal defensive typing. It also was able to burn physical attackers, so it's not super easy to switch into with any physical attacker, because unless you're a fire type or immune to burn, you very likely might just get burned by switching to a Sacred Fire. Yeah, it's overall a very interesting Pokemon, very defensive. However, it's a similar issue with Dialga where it really struggles with damage output. It's a physical attack. If you look at this list, like special attacker, physical attacker that boosts its attack automatically, physical attacker, special, physical but can't be intimidated, physical, special. Like you can see that most of them are either special attackers or physical attackers with some kind of mitigation for intimidate. The only 2 on this list so far out of the 2, 6, 8 Pokemon, only 2 of these Pokemon are physical attackers that you can intimidate and like actually have it do something, which is Groudon and Calyrex, both of whom access Swords Dance, and Calyrex even boosts its attack by taking KOs. Ho is a physical attacker that you can intimidate and doesn't have counterplay to it. And additionally, it's a Pokemon that wants to sit in the field and soak attacks up, so it likes to like it can even be intimidated multiple times in most games. Fire Flying is a good stab. It like has good coverage offensively with those 2, but they do tend to struggle against a lot of similar types like Rock. Even like Fire type, like Fire plus an dual type can be hard. Although they actually match up pretty favorably into a lot of restricted Pokemon, so that's not bad. But the way that you play Ho is it's a super defensive Pokemon. You focus down the counters and then you make it so that they can never break through your Ho, and that's fine and dandy, but it's not a great way to play Pokemon because you're susceptible to crits. You're playing a slower game, which means you're like same issues we had with Zygarde, basically same issues with Ho, although Ho is a little bit of a different Pokemon, plays differently. But yeah, if you really love Ferrothorn, if you're like a person who like loves using Ferrothorn, I think Ho could be a good Pokemon for you. In general, I would say that like Ho is a Pokemon where if you're a defensive player, you love playing defensively, you want games to take a long time, you want to like kind of slowly chip away at your opponents, which to be clear, I played like that for a while. I think Ho could be a good Pokemon, but it's not going to have the immediate offense of something like Kyogre or Zashin or really anything in the above tiers. I would say Necrozma, this form is probably B tier. It's a solid Pokemon. This is the same issue with Ho, where it is a physical attacker which is susceptible to intimidate. So this is Necrozma Solgaleo for me. It is it's fine, Steel Psychic type. It has Prism Armor rather than Full Metal Body, which means that it has Filter basically, so all attacks do less damage, or super effective attacks get a little bit less damage done to it, which is a good ability. It has Steel, Psychic, Ground coverage, solid. It's I think slower than Solgaleo. I typically think of it as more of like the Trick Room version of Solgaleo, so it can be good in certain situations. I've seen it earn Swords Dance before. However, losing Ultra Necrozma means that you lose some of that like special attacking threat, which was kind of a big deal for a lot of these Solgaleo Pokemon or Necrozma forms. The real thing is it's a physical attacker that's weak to intimidate. So can it be good? Absolutely. It can absolutely be good. It has a lot going for it. Good typing, good bulk, good ability, lots of things going for it. However, the real thing is that it lacks offense. So if I were using this thing, I would give it a weakness policy and kind of use it as like a bulkier Solgaleo that could be intimidated, which is strictly worse than Solgaleo in my opinion, but still solid. So I've lost this thing a couple times, but I didn't have the tools to deal with it. I streamed those games, so yeah, like I've seen it do well, but overall I would say it isn't as consistent. Other B tier Pokemon, I think Lugia is a B tier Pokemon. I think that this thing could be okay with Dynamax and weakness policy. The real issue here is just that it doesn't have any damage output, especially if you don't Dynamax it. Aeroblast isn't that good. It's really, really bulky and has a good ability in multi-scale, but yeah, overall I would say that this thing, like, it lacks the damage output. It has All My Friends Are Dead syndrome, which is what happens when a Pokemon doesn't have enough offensive output, so you can KO the Pokemon around it because it can't do like that much if you ignore it. Typing isn't the best. It's not horrible, like, but if it maxes, it can't even make use of Psychic terrains. Overall, I would say this thing, it's fine, right? It's very bulky. You can definitely lose to it. It's kind of similar to Ho, except like slightly bulkier, faster, better in Dynamax, has access to weakness policy. But on the downside, I don't think it needs to max, but it's much, much better if it maxes. And yeah, multi-scale is kind of antithetical with, multi-scale. So Polky, I think, is B tier. Polky finally gets an accurate water move and Max Geyser, but if you look at Polky compared to some of the Pokemon above, it just doesn't have as much going for it. It doesn't have the same bulk. It doesn't have as good defensive typing. Like, half these Pokemon are steel type, right? Half of the S and A tier, so it doesn't have steel typing, which isn't great. Its water dragon is fine, but it's weak to fairy, it's weak to dragon. There's a fair few fairy and dragon Pokemon, and it doesn't have that many resistances. Like, I mean, it's got a couple, but like, it's really resistant to water and fire, but like neutral ice, neutral electric, neutral grass, neutral ground, neutral flying, neutral dark, neutral psychic. But yeah, I think it's okay. The real issue with Polky is that it lacks speed control. It's not great, truthfully. You definitely want like your restricted Pokemon to do something, and even pretty much everything in this list has some kind of speed control except for Kyogre and Groudon. But yeah, like Dialga's Trick Room, this is max airstream, this is Trick Room if it wants, plus Bulldoze is speed control. This is just fast enough that doesn't need it, fast enough it doesn't need it, Trick Room, airstream, and this has Trick Room, but you wouldn't, it's not like, it's in an awkward speed tier where like you can run Trick Room on it, but it's like going to be awkward most of the time. So, but I don't know, maybe Polky can be good, especially like with Life Orb and Dynamax, it probably hits pretty hard. So I think that's all for the, oh no, and Xerneas. I'm putting Xerneas in the B tier. I can't put it lower than that. It's too dangerous of a Pokemon. I refuse to put it any lower. It's performing really poorly right now, I think because Xerneas' whole deal is that it one-shots everything once it sets up, and with Dynamax, it no longer does that. So yeah, and I think also Dynamax really doesn't favor Xerneas as much as it favors a lot of these other restricted Pokemon. However, it's still a very dangerous Pokemon and has probably the best attack in the game, except for maybe Dark Void, or Old Dark Void, that is. Geomancy, and yeah, like it's not as consistent right now as a lot of these other Pokemon, but if someone builds a good Xerneas team, they can just, like, Xerneas is so strong at its peak. That's that. And then I think a lot of these are, actually, you know what, and one more in the B tier. I'm putting Zygarde in the B tier as well. I think Zygarde is fine. It's similar to Ho in that it's a physical attacker, you can intimidate it, and then it just doesn't do any damage. However, it's very bulky, and as you saw on our stream the other day, if you set it up, it just becomes like extraordinarily difficult to remove, and basically, yeah, it's like not easy to remove at all given the right support. So I don't think it's great. I think it's kind of gimmicky. Overall, it's a very, very, very bulky Pokemon with decent typing, and Max Quake benefits it a lot because now it has a way to boost its special defense. So it's like something that you should at least be considering in team building, making sure you have some kind of answer for, even if it's just like good intimidate cycling. So I think, okay, Lunala is probably C tier. Oh, I haven't used Lunala yet. Ooh, it feels bad to put Lunala in C tier. Here's the issue with Lunala. I'll break it down for you. Basically, Dynamax does not favor as much Pokemon like Lunala, which have 4 times weaknesses and can still get one shot. And it especially doesn't favor Lunala because the Pokemon that Lunala struggles with are Pokemon like Incineroar, right? Like basically bulky dark types and I guess faster ghost types as well. So not only is the introduction of Calyrex kind of pretty concerning, not only is the introduction of Indeedee again kind of pretty concerning because, you know, Lunala's ghost moves can't do anything into Indeedee, and unlike Calyrex Ghost Form, it doesn't have like a way around that, like with the redirection. But on top of all of that, Lunala doesn't really have the tools to deal with a Pokemon like Incineroar, even if it maxes. Now, back in the day, Lunala had a Z move, and the nice thing about Z Lunala was that it could actually chunk Incineroar for like pretty close to 50%, as I recall, which means if you chipped Incineroar down, you got it in range, you could then one-shot it with your Lunala, some counterplay. Now, you're not going to want to max your Lunala, so that option is no longer available to you, and it just doesn't match up very well into a lot of these Pokemon across the board. Like, if we look at the S through B plus tiers, like, Lunala doesn't have a favorable matchup against any of these Pokemon. Like, maybe Zashin, but even Zashin, you just break the Shadow Shield, and then, like, you can win. Like, the only Pokemon it has, like, a somewhat decent matchup against are, like, Solgaleo, kind of, and then, like, Kyogre, kind of, but Lunala still probably loses to, like, Bulldoze, like, Spectre, and Solgaleo, because you Bulldoze break the Shadow Shield, and then, like, +2 Max Steel Spike and one-shot it. So, yeah, I don't think Lunala is super good right now, unfortunately. It's a really cool Pokemon, but, yeah, there's just, it doesn't have enough going for it. And also, Lunala is one of the Pokemon that suffers the most by not having a restricted partner, because Lunala doesn't play so much like a restricted Pokemon. Like, a lot of these Pokemon feel like restricted Pokemon, and Lunala, to me, kind of feels more like a really strong non-restricted Pokemon, and so you really want to pair it with one of the stronger restricted Pokemon, like Groudon, Kyogre, Zashin, Rayquaza, back when Rayquaza could Mega Evolve, you know, to get more of the advantages of using a restricted Pokemon. And without a restricted Pokemon partner, I think Lunala just can't cut it as its main restricted Pokemon. So next, in terms of C tier, I think Zekrom belongs in the C tier. It's not that bad. Like, Dynamax favors Zekrom more than non-Dynamax formats favor it, so maybe Zekrom might even have a place in the B tier. Zekrom's whole deal is it hits really, really hard, but its typing is pretty bad and has a lot of really common weaknesses: ground, ice, fairy, dragon, and it doesn't have, like, good speed control, and it's just overall pretty, like, it has good stats, but it just feels pretty mediocre. I don't think it's the worst Pokemon you could use, but I don't think it's a good Pokemon. Maybe there's some way to make this, like, thing good, but Zekrom was good when like Mega Rayquaza Kyogre was a really popular core because its electric and dragon typing resists flying and water, which are the main attacks. If we get to a point where Kyogre is like the main restricted Pokemon, you could run Zekrom, I guess, but you could also just run Cortana, right, and kind of accomplish the same thing. But yeah, Zekrom's defensive typing is actually like, it has common weaknesses, but its resistances are nice, and most Zashin right now are running no fairy moves, so like that's good. But yeah, once we start to look into like some of the more A and B tier mons, you see why it struggles. Like if the whole meta were Kyogre and Zashin, I might even put Zekrom in B tier, but right now, you know, you have Groudon, which doesn't match it favorably into. Dialga destroys it. Yveltal matches up well into. Solgaleo, I give the advantage to Solgaleo because you can max Quake for super effective. I guess you can max Quake both ways, so maybe that one's more neutral. Ice Horse beats it. It actually might beat Ghost Horse. So yeah, I think Zekrom is, of the C tier mons, probably one of the ones that has the most potential, but I just haven't seen enough of it to really put it higher. And as we've been talking about, it's a physical attacker with no counterplay to intimidate. If it had everything going for it, but it was a special attacker, probably a B tier mon, but since it's physical, I had to put it in the C tier. Mewtwo, I think Mewtwo's pretty bad, but I'll put it in the C tier. Let's talk about Mewtwo's issues, because I know this is going to be confusing for a lot of people. Mewtwo number 1 is not fast enough. We have Pokemon like Spectre, which it speed ties with. We have Pokemon like Calyrex Ghost Horse, faster than it will one-shot it, can't even protect it with anything. And then honestly, like the biggest issue in my opinion is Regieleki, because Regieleki is anything that's fast and frail, Regieleki will beat because it can Electroweb it down, lower the speed, and break Focus Sash, and then your partner can KO it. So Mewtwo really suffers from this, and also Zashin probably one-shots it as well at +1. So Mewtwo doesn't have the defensive base stat that it needs. It's fast and it hits hard, but like, why would you ever use Mewtwo over Calyrex Ghost, right? Can anyone answer that for me? Any Mewtwo stands? Can you answer that for me? Like, why would I use Mewtwo over Calyrex Ghost? Like, yeah, you have some moves, like you have wider move pool, but like, it just really doesn't cut it, and the disadvantages are not outweighing the severely outweighing the advantages of it. I'm gonna put Zamazenta in C tier. I kind of wanted to put it in D tier, but it's more of a C tier mon in my opinion. Compared to Zashin, it's so unbelievably unfair that like they gave this thing a defense boost, which is so much worse than an attack boost. And yeah, it's bulky, but like as a restricted Pokemon, you want them primarily to be doing damage and not like supporting, or at least to have the ability to do damage. And this thing is like, yeah, like the defense boost really doesn't cut it. And they didn't even give it body press, which is kind of ridiculous given that it's like a shield dog that runs into people. So I think that's pretty stupid, but yeah, Steel Fighting, worse typing than Zashin. No body press, kind of a joke when you consider that like literally everything gets body press. Like, so I don't know why they didn't give it to Zamazenta. I guess they thought it'd be too strong, but like they gave Zashin overpowered stuff, so I don't know why they couldn't like be at least a little bit kind to Zamazenta. But yeah, this thing is mostly just a waste of time. The only reason that I would ever even consider using this is because it's a fast coaching user that's hard to remove. But other than that, like that's pretty much it. Like you should almost never be using this thing over Zashin, and especially because it's not even a special defense boost. Like if it was a special defense boost, maybe B tier, maybe, right? But defense is just a much worse stat to buff, in my opinion, especially when you can't really do that much in return, and it doesn't have counterplay to intimidate it, and it's a physical attacker. C tier. Disappointing. Wide Guard and Snarl, but do you want your restricted Pokemon to be clicking Snarl, or do you want your restricted Pokemon to be clicking Water Spout? Right? I'm gonna put Reshiram in the C tier as well. I think that this Reshiram is either C or D tier, but I think it's like got decent defensive typing. Fire Dragon is like pretty cool typing overall, and it's a special attacker that does damage. It like benefits from Dynamax, but no speed control. Kind of an awkward speed tier. Kyogre's really popular right now, but it does match up favorably into Zashin. It matches up okay into Groudon, okay into Solgaleo, okay into the horses if you max it. It's like not a terrible Pokemon. Like I think C, you could like, maybe somebody does well with Reshiram and then you put it in the B tier, but I don't think it's great. And of those C tier mons, I think that Zekrom and Reshiram are the best in my opinion. But they've also been the mons that like traditionally have performed the worst. Like even if we look at the C tier mons, like in Gen 7, this did well, this did well, this did okay, this didn't exist. So like of the C tier mons, like they're the worst performing, you know? D tier, Kyurem never used this thing in my opinion. Even like base Kyurem is not worth using. Same with base Necrozma, there's just strictly better options. Both Giratina formies are D tier. Don't use these things. They don't do damage. They're bulky ghost types. You can just use Sableye, right? Like they're not gonna do damage. I don't know. Like slow, don't really offer anything. I don't even think they get Trick Room, which is annoying. Like if you want to use these things, just build around Ho instead. Like if you're gonna use a bad defensive Pokemon, you may as well use something that's at least half decent rather than Giratina. Rayquaza, unfortunately have to put in the D tier. Without its Mega Evolution, this thing is just garbage. Not having access to Delta Stream is a big deal. You could maybe argue Rayquaza C tier, but like when you consider you could use Zashin or you could use Rayquaza, like the difference is just so massive. I even think that you'd be better off if I had to use number 1 with any Pokemon. I think that any Pokemon in the C tier would be easier than Rayquaza, just because like I don't know, maybe Life Orb Dynamax Rayquaza can do some damage, but it's just so bad. And like without Delta Stream, it's just so bad. So yeah, I'm not doing that. And then I don't even know what this thing is. I honestly don't know what it is. So it goes into D tier. And it doesn't even get the hand for me. Yeah, so we're missing base Necrozma. Base Necrozma goes into D tier. I don't know enough about the Cure Infusions. I'll be completely honest. I legitimately don't know what the Cure Infusions do. Or like, I know what they do, but like I can't really conceptualize. Their Ice Dragon type. That could be okay. C tier. Both Curums in C tier. C is generous because they're Ice Dragon and they're weak to Zashin and they can't even Dynamax to get around that. They're pretty bad in my opinion. Yeah, they're bad. They're 100% bad. Like you can't get one shot. You can't have your restricted Pokemon getting one shot by Zashin. Like if we look at this, the only restricted Pokemon that get one shot by Zashin are like this, maybe. At least you can intimidate and survive. This probably gets one shot, but it also gets like as a trick Pokemon, so it doesn't count. No, doesn't get one shot, doesn't get one shot, doesn't get one shot, doesn't get one shot, gets one shot, doesn't get one shot. No, 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 yes, no, no, yes, or no, yes, no, don't know. Yeah, Curums are bad, C tier. I still Zamazenta is not C tier because it enables other Pokemon and has wide guard, so Electrode doesn't matter. If you're enabling other Pokemon, you're not enabling your restricted Pokemon. What Pokemon are you going to enable that would be better than a Pokemon that enables Kyogre or Zashin, right? Or even these bonds. You could have, like, you don't want your restricted Pokemon to be your support Pokemon. Even when you get 2 restricted Pokemon, you don't want them to be your support Pokemon. Like, you want a Snarl Intimidate user. There are other Pokemon that do that. You could just run Light Screen Aleki. Like, if I were to order these within tiers, let's say, okay, we're gonna say leftmost is best, right? I'll just do this quickly. This is my ordering. For C tier, D tier, these are all garbage. Then this, then this, then this. B tier. Oh, B tier is really hard. Wait, hang on. I don't think Ho is that good. I don't think any of these mods are that good. I'm putting Xerneas in the middle. That seems right. I'd probably do something like this for B tier. I like Ice Horse more than Ghost Horse. Yveltal, Groudon, Dialga, Solgaleo, and then S tier. Yeah, this is if I ordered them. I'm not saying these Pokemon can't win games. I'm saying like this is like my likelihood to win a tournament, right? B tier, you could win a tournament with these mons for sure. S tier, like you expect these Pokemon to win. Like S and A tier, these are Pokemon they're gonna win most of the tournaments, right? And B plus. They say B plus. B tier can win. You'll see them win occasionally. C tier, unlikely to win. D tier, you almost never usually win. Why isn't base Calyrex on here? D tier. Even worse than Kyurem, if you can believe it. D tier right here. It goes Rayquaza, Giratina, Energus, Kyurem, Necrozma, Nebby, Cosmoem, Feebas, Big Head Deer Guy. I already forgot the name. Calyrex.